Veteran leadership is something that this Kentucky basketball team does not have a shortage of. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it's different from last year's roster, but we think in a positive way. That is going to be the conversation on today's episode of the Wildcats Today Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak, publisher over at Kentucky Wildcats on SI, joined as always by Carson, Nash. Carson, it's Monday. We're dragging a little bit. But I think that every day that goes by, we get closer to the start of college football and NFL football, and that's very exciting. That's what gets me through Mondays this time of year.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, getting closer by the day. You know, we had a good Lake weekend. We ended up watching Happy Gilmore 2, which we thought was a great movie. You know, there's been some difference of viewpoints, but, I thought it was pretty good. But, yeah, super exciting. You know, Monday dragging a little bit. But let's talk about some veterans.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing on Happy Gilmore too is I just am not I'm not a movie buff, man. I'm not out here writing reviews. I just want stuff to be funny. I don't care. You know what I mean? I enjoyed it. I thought there were funny parts. Was the end a little gimmicky with all that? Sure. Was it being a shot at the live funny? Yes. I don't know. I think it's getting overhated. You know what I mean? I can see where people are coming from, but it's just enjoy it. You know what I mean? Hey,
the cameos were golden.
Exactly. I agree. So let us know your thoughts on Happy Gilmore 2. We're curious. I bet this will spark a rich debate because people are I've seen people going at it about Happy Gilmore 2. So let us know your thoughts on that. But Carson, to get into this conversation about the veteran leadership on this roster, you and I texted it earlier today, and we're talking about what were we going to do for the show today, and we ended up landing on this. This was a Carson idea. It was a good one. And I think that the veteran leadership on this team is very different. I think a lot of people hear us say veteran leadership and they're going to say to themselves, it's not really an old team because of the team we had last year. But I think that there is a lot of leadership in different ways. So, I mean, Carson, where do you see the main leadership on this basketball team coming from this year?
Yeah, I think with no doubt it starts and ends with Otega Oweh. I think he's the main leader on this team, and he has to be a vocal leader and lead us through the season. But I also think there'll be key pieces like early on in the season when JQ's not fully healthy, we're going to have to lean on Brandon Garrison a lot, who's a returner. And then you got, of course, the spark off the bench, the Mountain Mamba, Trent Noah, who's been in the system for a year. So I think those guys can ultimately lead the team, and I think it's going to help us a lot early on in the season.
Yeah. And like I said, different type of veteran. So Andre Yelovich is a veteran basketball player. Is he veteran to college basketball? Is he veteran to SEC basketball? No, he's not. But he's a professional basketball player. He understands how to play basketball at a high level. He's not coming in as a, 16-year-old freshman that doesn't know what's going on. He's played high-level basketball for a long time. He's going to be able to lead a little bit. I think that that's an example of how it's different leadership, but still leadership. I think that Garrison, every return, last year, this was a big talking point heading into the season. The only returner to Mark Pope's system was Jackson Robinson, who, of course, was with Coach Pope at BYU. Now, you've got all these guys that are coming back: Colin Chandler, Trent Noah, Brandon Garrison, Otega Oweh. You got all of these players that have played in the system, and that's one common theme that I've heard within these interviews we have every week is the players talking about how they have leaned on Trent and Colin and Otega and Brandon and all of these guys that played last year for Coach Pope. To continue talking about the different types of leadership, Denzel Aberdeen just won a national championship, played some college basketball. He knows what he's doing. Mohamed Dioubate has been to a Final Four, and he plays the game the right way with high intensity. There is leadership all over this basketball team. So it's not like last year's team where the median age was 24. I mean, we're a younger basketball team, but we have a lot of college basketball experience and a lot of different experience, and I do think it will pay off as we get into this season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like how you mentioned some of the guys that weren't around, Aberdeen, Mo Diabate, because I think those guys, they might not have been in the system already, but they are leaders. They're hard workers. They're all locker room guys, which is huge because team chemistry is probably the biggest thing in the sport. So you got to be able to not only lead but also you can depend on the guys that were here, right? So you see Aberdeen talking about Colin Chandler some, and even though Aberdeen is older and more wise within the game of basketball, he's leaning on like Colin, because Colin's been already through a year with Mark Pope. So I think it goes both directions. And I think leadership isn't just about age, it's about a mindset.
Exactly right. And I remember in Coach Pope's press conference, not the one the other day, the one, two months, whenever it was, one thing that he reiterated time and time again was Brandon Garrison stepping up as a leader. And I think that Brandon, he talked about it. Our interview with Brandon was like a month ago, because it's crazy because we do these every week. So like that was a while ago, but he talked about how he's embracing that challenge from Coach Pope, and he wants to become a better leader. And we've talked about it. That might mean him, while still being animated, maybe doing a little less of the extracurricular to try and, avoid some technicals and some stuff like that. But I mean, here's the deal. You can't look at me and tell me Brandon Garrison doesn't care about this team and about this state and about this program. Brandon Garrison's here to win. He wants to win rivalry games. He wants to win the SEC. He wants to win a national championship. And he's going to sweat, cry, and bleed until that job is done. And I think that you have a lot of players on this team just like that. Mohamed Dioubate is a player just like that. We all know that. I think that Jalen Lowe is going to – that's one player, Carson, and if you've seen something different, you let me know. I haven't heard much about him as a leader. Now, I have, done the interviews with him and been around him at that camp, and, and he's a, bubbly personality guy. You know what I mean? He's not a quiet guy. So I think that his leadership is going to be interesting, especially knowing, he will be the point guard on this team. What are your thoughts on Lowe when it comes to his leadership?
Yeah, like you said, I haven't heard much about it, but that could also be a good thing, right? So I think every interview you see, he has the biggest smile ever on his face. And I think that translates to the locker room. And all leadership really is about having the team buy in to what you're selling, right? Mm-hmm. And I think on the court actions can also do that. Maybe if you're not the most vocal person, if you're always bubbly in the locker room, hanging out with guys off the court, those are all signs of leadership. And I think Lowe, not only is he going to get better in the vocal department, I think he's going to lead this team through just boosting the team chemistry because of his attitude.
Yeah. And we're not saying that he's not a leader. I hadn't heard anything about and you're right, Carson, it's a personality type. There is lead by your saying things and leading by example, leading by the way you play. There are different types of leaders. I mean, you learn that growing up playing sports. You just you pick up on that. And I think that the main leaders on this basketball team are going to be, to me, if I was guessing right now, I would say they will be Dioubate, Garrison, and Otega for the guys that play a lot. But I think I love what Coach Pope said about Trent. I mean, Trent's still a young guy. You don't often see sophomores, being those leaders. It's the juniors and seniors. But I think that Trent Noah is the leader on this basketball team. I think people look up to him and respect him. And I think he's one of those guys too. But this stuff does matter. There will be times when your back's against the wall. And, a moment I'll never forget, one of my recent Kentucky basketball leadership moments that I'll never forget. And if anyone remembers this, put it in the comments. Do you remember Trey Mitchell against Florida?
Mm-hmm.
And he was jawing up the crowd. That was Cal's last team. That was a young team. You had the highly ranked freshman, and then you had Robin Reed. And after the game, in the Journey video that they do, Trey talked about how he goes, we had a lot of young guys on this basketball team, and I wanted all of the fans chirping directed at me so that they could play with their minds freely and they could play the game. I'll never forget that. That was the most bad arse thing I've ever heard. I just thought I had so much respect for him for that. But I think that stuff like that is so important in sports, and it doesn't always come with age. Like we just said, junior, senior. I think Trent Noah would love to go into Knoxville and piss off everybody in there in orange and get them against them so that, some of these other guys, so Jasper Johnson can shoot the ball and have a clear mind. That stuff matters. And I think that you have a basketball team this year that is going to have that mentality for one another.
Yeah, definitely love what you said about Trent there. And, he did that last year
Yeah, he
a
did.
little,
Yeah.
But I think Trent plays a huge role, right? Because not only is he returning and knows the system well and is probably our best shooter,
Mhm.
but he bleeds this stuff. He's a home state kid. He literally the words he says about putting on a Kentucky jersey, he says it feels like the first time every time he puts it on.
Yeah.
He genuinely gets emotional about talking about playing for the university. So just having that in your locker room and having him being able to explain
Mhm.
what it feels like to put on the jersey and what it feels like to play in front of the fans, and getting these guys that aren't so accustomed to knowing how to play in Rupp Arena, getting them ready for that will be huge and massive. And especially most of these guys go into road environments, especially the new ones, and they're it's not t-shirt night.
No.
It's not, the stadium's not sold out. But when you play Kentucky, there's a different buzz in the opposing arenas. So I think our leaders getting these guys ready to handle that is going to be massive.
I fully agree. And like you said, I do think that stuff matters a lot. This leadership stuff, it's something that I think with teams, I think it gets overshadowed a lot as fans. I just don't think we think about it a lot, but I think it's important. And that's why I thought this was a great idea you had for us to talk about this today, Carson, because it's things that get overshadowed. Teams that are successful have great leadership. You cannot be successful without great leadership. It's just reality. And obviously a coach can have a role in that. Obviously Mark Pope's going to be a leader. He's going to be, the guide for this team. But I think that we need to see someone step up. And I think that you and I kind of talked about the names that's going to be. And it really excites me to know that we do have a lot of names. It's not like there's one guy. You've got a bunch of guys that are going to lead this team. And I think that will pay off when we get deeper into this basketball season.
Yeah, 100%. And even a recent thing that wasn't even a part of basketball practice or anything for the team, but them showing up for TBT, and you could tell Oweh was kind of the ringleader with that when they all got on the court and everything. You could tell Oweh was very emotional, not in the sense of like crying or anything, but could tell he really was bought in and wanted us to win. And the team also showed his emotions, right?
Yeah.
You've got guys that weren't here, haven't played here yet, and they're all bought into this TBT team that they don't probably know some of the guys on the team. And so I think the off the court is just as important as on the court leadership, which I think we're doing a really good job right now in that area.
Yeah. And the other part of that stuff that matters is building this connection. Connection on the floor is very important. Knowing, and you build that in practice, but you also build that on the golf course, at the TBT games, going to get dinner. That's where you build this. It's not all built on the floor practicing, and I'm really fired up that I think that once again, having been around this team a little bit, you just get that vibe. And you got that vibe with last year's team, and last year's team, I think with the skill and injuries overachieved, really. I think they did. And I think that this year we've talked, and this is one thing that Carson and I wanted to highlight. We've got the leadership, but a better basketball team, better athletes. It's just, every piece is there. So it's not like a team where we're super young and athletic, but we don't really there's not going to be much leadership, and that could lead to some blow-ups within games. We have leadership, but we're also still pretty young, athletic, and have a lot of, NBA talent upside. There's every box is checked on this basketball team. And that's one of the reasons why we all, Carson and I think a lot of people, believe this basketball team is going to be good and has a shot to win it all.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, we're really going to have to rely on those leaders, Otega, Brandon, Garrison, Colin, early on in the season, because it's going to be a change for these new guys. And I think we play a lot of hard games early on. And so some of these guys will come into their own as leaders on this team. But at the beginning, it's kind of going to be a fresh start for them. So they're going to have to lean on Otega, lean on BG to help them in certain situations that they wouldn't face at their old schools.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's all we got about this leadership, but we want to talk a little bit about the recruiting stuff that's going on. the battle on the recruiting trail that I think every member of BBN needs to be paying attention to right now is that for the number 1 overall player, Mr. Tyron Stokes. I mean, he is an absolutely dominant player. Stokes is the number 1 guy for a reason. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, and we've talked about it. He's from the state. He obviously lives out in California now, but where do you think we stand there, Carson? It sounds like Kentucky's making a solid push right now.
Yeah, there's definitely been more buzz recently, which is always good, what you want to hear. And I know he's shooting for a commitment date before his basketball high school season begins. So that's also 2 and 2 going together. That's always a positive outlook. You can always be worried a little bit about Louisville just because he's a Louisville City kid. But I think right now I would give the edge to Kentucky just based on all the buzz and everything. Now, like we always say here, recruiting is fluid, so that could change tomorrow. But everything I've seen is the push that Kentucky's continuing to make. It's seeming to work right now. The 3 schools in that I look at are Kentucky, Louisville, and then Arkansas too. I think those will be the 3 final schools on his list. And I think it really will come down to Kentucky and Louisville.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of Bluegrass State battles this year. I think Kenny will be the same way. And looking over at when you sit down and you look at the future of his recruitment and stuff, I think we're putting ourselves in a good spot. It's not done yet. Like, it's not obviously over. And Carson, I mean, you just said it. It is 100% fluid, and you never know what's going to happen. But I think we've done a heck of a job putting ourselves in a position that we weren't in a month ago for Stokes. And I think that's huge. So it's now about keeping this going with the fluidity of recruiting. And as we always say, it does change. You got to keep your foot on the gas. That's what has to happen. You can't, and I don't think Mark Pope's the type of guy that's going to ever back off. I mean, I bet he calls him every single day until he commits somewhere, and that's the key, is keeping the foot on the gas, because you don't want to let anybody else get an advantage. If you see there's some Louisville buzz, you call him and say, "Hey, what's going on, man? Come on." You stay in his ear. That's what Louisville and Arkansas and all of them will be doing. We've got to do it as well. So I like our spot, Carson. I mean, right now, I agree with you from what I've heard and the vibes I've seen. I think that we have a very, 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 very small edge right now. Very small. But it's narrow, and I think that we're going to have to keep that. So I'm excited to see what happens here, but it would really be great to hush down a lot of folks and that have crap talked Pope's recruiting. And I want to ask you this, Carson. You know how everyone's always doing the whole like, "Oh, he can't recruit kids outside of Kentucky." What are your thoughts? Do you think, knowing that Stokes has been huge on, "I'm a Louisville kid, I want to go to Louisville," you know what I mean? If we pulled him away, do you think that would shut people up, or do you still think he's going to have to land a kid that has no ties to this state? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, he's the number 1 overall player in the class, and I don't really think it's that close. So I think some people who aren't really ball knowers would be like, "Oh, he still has to land somebody outside." But for me, landing the clear number 1 overall recruit should hush a lot of people.
Yeah.
And not to mention, you're in a good spot with Caleb Holt, Darren Rippey. I mean, you've got some guys that you can also lean on to go recruit that aren't from Kentucky. So I think that Pope's quietly starting to silence the haters, and I think this class will prove that.
Yeah. And he's still got to get it done. I mean, I think I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm saying I get where the people are saying that, are coming from. He has lost a couple battles for recruits that we did want, that weren't from this state. But I think that he's going to get it done. He's going to get himself a top 10 recruit that's not a Kentucky kid. And I'm also not worried about it, because here's the deal. I don't give a crap where they're from. He's the number 1 overall player. I don't care if he comes from Antarctica. I don't care. Cool. Like, that's a silly narrative to me. And now maybe it won't be in 2 years if Pope's struggling to recruit and we run out of, this elite talent from Kentucky kind of runs out, but I don't think that's going to happen. So worry about Kenny and Stokes. Go get these guys. Say, "Well, they're from Kentucky." Shut up. Who cares? And then we'll deal with it when there aren't kids from Kentucky, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's all you could say to the folks saying that. People are just look for a reason to tell you why Mark Pope won't be successful, because I think deep down they know how successful he's going to be.
Yeah, that's definitely my thing too. And I'll give a little update about Kenny. I think Kenny's probably trending towards Louisville as much as Stokes is trending towards Kentucky, which isn't the biggest surprise because I think we're still uncertain about what's going to happen with Lowe, right? I mean, he has another year of eligibility afterwards, so he could just come back. And I think Louisville will have an open
stuff. Isn't Kenny's Adidas and Stokes is Nike?
Stokes is Nike. So I was getting ready to mention that. That's a big thing too. And that does play a part, even though it's not the end all be all. It does play a part. And so I think, I mean, Kenny, I think is probably going to go to Louisville. But like I said, you have other options out there like Rippey and Colt. Like you've got guys that you can turn to. And like I said, we're going to have depth and pieces to play with. And Kenny might not want to come here and sit the bench.
Yeah. And the best part about that is, like you said, if we don't get a point guard in this class, we'll go get one in the portal and be just fine.
Because that's one thing, Pope is good at recruiting.
And that's why, exactly. And that's why I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not as concerned about high school recruiting as I once was.
I agree.
I'm not. I enjoy it. I love to follow it. I love to talk about it on here. But if Pope doesn't land, Rippey, or doesn't land Kenny, we'll get one in the portal and be just fine. Exactly. Or Lowe will come back and he, we'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not, and I don't want to copy him. That I'm just saying, like, that's one of the benefits of college basketball today is you can just get somebody from the portal if you miss on a recruit. Every coach misses on recruits, happens every year. Pope will miss on more. Every coach will. It happens. It's just, how do you recover from that? And I think Coach Pope will always find a way to recover and be just fine. So we'll see what happens at the guard position. But yeah, I like our chance to the Stokes, and I think that he's going to be a stud, man. He's going to be good. So
really good.
Yeah. So Carson, you got any other thoughts before we call it a day?
That's all I got. Hope everyone has a good rest of their Monday.
Yep. Hope everyone has a great Monday. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate that. I think that we just got over, what number did we just get over, Carson? Yeah, we're at 2,700. Really want to get to 3,000. Help us out with that. Keep hitting that button. We'd really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Big Reds game tonight. Tune in. Got to beat the Dodgers. Big series. Biggest Reds series in 5 years. Don't want to sell at the trade deadline. Let's go Chase Burns. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.